Bring it on in, week 12 in the college football season. It hurts to say it every single week, but I think, honestly, this might be the quickest season I can remember. I remember watching that Kansas State-Iowa State game outside in a pool like it was yesterday. I remember how bad of a football game it was, but it felt so good to be back. And here we are, week 12 already. All these teams only have about a couple games left in this season, but a very important week this week. The SEC, I think, is the headliner this week. Two teams potentially could get eliminated from playoff contention. You got Notre Dame and Pitt. That's a massive matchup. We'll get into that one first. Notre Dame playing for their playoff lives as well. South Florida, the highest-ranked G5 team now after last week with Memphis losing. If they win out, they win the American, they'll find themselves in the playoff. And then we got ACC that's full of chaos right now and interesting, and the Big Ten still has a couple teams kind of vying for some playoff spots behind Ohio State and Indiana. So a lot of action to get into this week. I'm excited. But Joe, welcome back. How are we? And hard to believe, middle of November already.
Yeah, Beef, as always, thank you for having me on. But yeah, it's crazy. We say it every week, and I feel like I've said it the past couple of years, but it's true every year. This season flew by to me. Like, I don't know what it is. This season has absolutely zipped by. It's crazy how you have some teams like Indiana only have 2 games left. There's really 3 weeks left of the season. It's insane how we're already almost at rivalry weekend. But playoff picture is starting to get a little bit clearer. But it is just nuts how quick it goes by. And now we're sitting here, arguing hypotheticals and, about the SEC maybe getting 8 teams in. And you got Sankey saying they should get at least 8 and everything. And, we've gone from week 0 being like, oh, wow, football's back to we're just screaming, calling everybody morons for not agreeing with our college football takes. And it feels good. It feels good to be here this time of year, but it does, at the same time, it really makes you almost like appreciate, like, hey, we only got this much time left.
What, are we dying over here or something?
The 2025 season's dying, yeah.
Jeez, don't say that. Well, you got the Jets tonight to look forward to. That's exciting.
I haven't watched the last 2 games. I texted you guys after that. I don't even. I'm not watching this team anymore.
Panthers.
Oh yeah, the game I was at. That's why I don't remember watching it. Yes, after the Jets Panthers game that I paid money to go watch, I was like, I'm done watching this team.
Oh.
Unless it's a primetime game. I don't know what just happened there. And now here we are. They've won 2 in a row with me not watching. So who the hell knows? If I watch it, maybe the tank will be back on.
You like the Panthers fans with the with Meow Mix from Part of My Take. Have you heard about that or no? What the hell is going on? All right. Well, Joe is having some technical difficulties, so we'll get right into. I'll get into the first game that we're going to be breaking down this week. That's number 9 Notre Dame at 7-2 at number 22 Pitt, who's also 7-2. Noon kick on ABC. Notre Dame's a 10.5-point favorite over under 55.5. And Pat Narduzzi, the Pitt coach, basically came out and said this week, like, this game doesn't matter to us. We can lose 110-3, and we're still alive. We're still in playoff contention, which is true. They're still alive there in the ACC. But still, you can look at it the same way. If they win out, they win the ACC. You would like to win this game as well and get that opportunity to get a higher seed in the ranking. So, Joe, I was just saying that this game still means something to Pitt, even though if they lose it, they're not eliminated, they're not out of contention. But if they do win it and they finish 10-2, like they're going to be one of the higher seeds, I think, going up there in the playoffs, rather than maybe like the last seed, the 12th seed. Maybe they find themselves into the top 8 and they're able to host a home game. I still think it means a little bit, but Notre Dame definitely playing for their life in this matchup. 10.5-point spread. Do you like Notre Dame to keep their season alive? And do you buy into kind of any of those comments by Narduzzi and Pitt?
I do think Notre Dame's going to win the game and keep the season alive. I don't buy those comments by Narduzzi. And if he is being serious, then he's a moron. Like, he truly is. Because you have an opportunity these last 3 games, hosting Notre Dame, going to Georgia Tech, hosting Miami. You went out. You're in the ACC title game. And then let's say, you win the ACC title game. That's most likely 4 straight wins against top 25 teams. That's really going to bolster your metrics and stuff and your strength of schedule. and just beating those ranked teams is going to really up. Like you said, Coyle, they could be hosting
Hmm.
a playoff game rather than, oh, they lose to Notre Dame, but they sneak in, then maybe they get like the 11 or 10 seed. Like, I don't know. I don't buy those comments. I think he was just trying to be funny, but it came off obviously as like really wrong. I guess him being, out of touch or whatever.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I'm going Notre Dame 35, Pitt 21. I think Notre Dame's a better team. Um, or maybe, who knows? Maybe he was saying it to just kind of like cover his own ass if they get killed. He'll be like, see, this game doesn't mean anything. But I just think Notre Dame's a better team. I wouldn't be shocked. I was seeing a lot of the propaganda this week from the ACC's like official Twitter. They were tweeting out like blind resumes, like, Notre Dame versus Miami and who should be ranked higher. So I wouldn't be shocked if the ACC refs give Pitt a lot of calls. But ultimately, I think Notre Dame's a better team. I think they're going to win the game and cover. I'm going to take the over, barely covering by 50 by the hook. So I'm going to go 35-21 Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm intrigued in this one. We outlined it, we laid it out there that basically Notre Dame, they have to win out, and it's still not a guarantee. But I don't see a scenario where if they do win out that they fall out of the playoff. And Pitt, even if they lose this game, they're still alive in the ACC, but they can play for some better seeding. So I still think it kind of means something to them. But I'm intrigued to watch this one because this Pitt freshman quarterback has been lighting it up really ever since he came in. And Holstein was a pretty good quarterback last season, I thought. But this freshman kid has been really lighting up. And I haven't really got to sit down and watch him. So this will be a nice kind of introduction to that. He's been lighting it up. Is that a guy that, got his chance at Pitt and will transfer to an Indiana or something, be the next transfer to Indiana, or does he go to like a Penn State, something like that? That's going to be a situation to watch because a kid that wasn't that highly touted of a recruit is lighting it up this much, and he gets a big test this week against this Notre Dame defense. I do like Notre Dame to win this game. I'm going to take Pitt to cover. I think 10.5 is a lot, but I did say the same exact thing last week about Notre Dame against Navy, and they covered that one by at least 10 points. I think it was with a 26.5 point spread. They won that game comfortably. So the market really loves this Notre Dame team, or Vegas really loves this Notre Dame team. They're backing it up. And you look at Marcus Freeman's numbers too against the spread historically since he's become the head coach at Notre Dame. He's the best coach in the country against the spread. So if you want to take the 10.5 and lay it with Notre Dame, I won't blame you at all. But I do think Pitt's respectable enough to keep this within a 10-point game. I'll go 31-21 Notre Dame. So the Irish go to 10-2, Pitt plus 10.5, under 55.5 there. And Pitt still lives to see another day. Who were their last two games against, Joe? I think it's
At Tech and then home against
at
Miami.
Georgia Tech.
Yes, sir.
Oh wow! So they have a couple really tough ones to go. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean
their
they
whole.
and who are their losses against? Did they lose to Louisville? I think.
I think they lost. Let me pull their schedule back up. I just got
And
ready, but
I assume the other one was a
they lost to
non-conference.
Louisville and at West Virginia.
Oh yeah, so the West Virginia one's a bad one, but you look at their wins. If they're able to knock off Notre Dame, if they're able to knock off Georgia Tech and Miami, that's 3 wins to end the season. That's more than a handful. Vanderbilt doesn't have a ranked win on the season. That's more than them. They beat Florida State, which at one point kind of looked impressive as well. But yeah, it's still, I think, a big opportunity for Pitt, even though it's not do or die elimination game for them. I think it's still a big matchup, but I'll take Notre Dame to win it there. All right, we'll go to the G5 game of the week. Number 24, South Florida, 7-2, 4-1 in the conference, new to the top 25. They are your G5 representative in the bracket as of today. They'll be traveling to Navy, who's 7-2, 5-1. Another noon kick. This one on ESPN2. USF's a 10.5 point favorite though. Over under is 64.5. I think it sounds unlikely that Blake Horvath, the star quarterback for Navy, is unlikely to play in this matchup. So that's a huge reason, I think, indicating why this number is all the way up there at 10.5. But South Florida, Joe, they win out. They're going to be going to the college football playoff. Can they take care of business on the road at Navy this week?
Yeah, I think they will. I think they're going to win this game pretty comfortably as well. I have a USF 45, Navy 21. I'll take the Bulls minus a 10.5. I'll go over 64.5. And I talked about USF a couple weeks ago. Byron Brown just like has his moments where he can go Superman mode. This USF team is so good. I know they got, upset at Memphis, but that was like Memphis's Super Bowl. But I mean, besides their two, like they are blowing out their teams in conference. They blew out Charlotte. They blew out North Texas, who was the other team. They're 8-1. They're currently the next favorite to make the playoff as a G5, I think. They killed them 63-36. They just blew out UTSA 55-23, who was coming off an upset win against Tulane. Like, I think USF is going to be just fine. I think they're going to beat Navy. And then after the Navy game, they go to UAB and host Rice. I don't see them losing any of those games. And I think they'll be sitting there 10-2 heading into the conference title game. I think USF will be just fine. I think they'll end up at the end of the season within the top 20. And then I think they're going to win the American, and then you're going to have probably JMU right behind them. But especially if USF can go out and let's say North Texas wins out as well, and you got a USF North Texas rematch, and they take care of business the way they did again, you're going to see USF pretty comfortably. And there's an opportunity right now. The way the ACC has been imploding and just the total chaos, USF might be ranked higher than the ACC champ, just like how Boise last year was ranked higher than the Big 12 and the ACC champ.
So that would eliminate the ACC then.
No, that'd still be the fifth. ACC would just be the 12th.
Okay. Well,
unless JMU wins out,
the
then
scenario would be like if JMU would have to win.
yeah,
That's what I was hearing a little bit this week. Like especially if Duke, that we'll talk about in a little bit. If Duke wins out, that'll probably be a conversation.
Yeah, that'll be interesting if Duke wins out, and you're looking at an ACC champ with 4 losses that just lost to UConn on the road. I know Narduzzi said these non-conference games don't matter, but they really do if you want to up the perception of your own conference. But right now, I don't think the ACC is necessarily going to lose their bid, but I think it'll be interesting if there's more chaos to see how USF would navigate through there. But I think USF's going to win this game pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I'll go with USF too. I think they're definitely the G5 team I've watched the most this year. And Byron Brown, you touched on it, can go in that Superman mode, can make games a really fun watch. And this USF team goes. Like I really want to see Alex Golish get an opportunity to be at one of these Power Fives, whether it's like an Arkansas or a Virginia Tech. Hell, I was even calling for him to Penn State. I'd love to see his offense at the Power 4 level and have the chance to really, explode onto the national scene because he's got guys that can score, but I would like to see him with that power level talent. I'm not sure if Byron Brown, I don't think he does. If he had an extra year, I would love to see him at the highest level in like the SEC. But we've already seen him, beat a Florida. They didn't have the great game against Miami, but they beat a Boise State, and they've been, I think, the best team in the G5 definitely this year. I think they're deserving of that playoff spot. They just got to take care of business, like you said, down the stretch. And with Horvath most likely out in this one, I don't think that they're going to be able to keep up with USF. So I'm going to take USF to win. Barely cover the 10.5. Give me a little bit of breathing room there in case Horvath does play and make it interesting. But I'll go over 64.5. I think this one's a shootout. Give me 41-30 here, USF. All right. Elimination game for number 11, Oklahoma, I think, in the SEC at 7-2, 3-2 in the SEC. At number 4, Alabama, who's 8-1, 6-0 in the SEC. 3:30 kick on ABC. Bama, 7.5-point favorite. Over/unders 45.5. We talked about it a lot at the beginning of the season, before the season, and even throughout the season. That Oklahoma schedule was super tough, but that Oklahoma schedule that looks super tough has gotten a lot easier here over the back half with some of these teams kind of faltering down the stretch. Their last 2 games of the regular season are at home against Missouri and at home against LSU. Both matchups that they'll be favored in most likely, barring any kind of major injuries. So even if they lose this game and they win out, they go 9-3. I don't think with those wins are really putting them over the top there down the stretch. So I'm calling this an elimination game for them. And then you go to Bama too, like who, I'd probably put at a 95% chance to make the playoff. But say Alabama loses this one, and I forget who they play next week. It's usually like Mercer or the Citadel or something like that.
They play Eastern Illinois next week.
Yeah, so, barking up the right tree there. But just say Alabama were to lose this game to Oklahoma, and then the Iron Bowl, who the hell knows what happens with that? Say what you want about Auburn. They go to overtime with Vanderbilt last week, have their best offensive performance of the season. They've lost barely to Georgia. They've lost barely to Oklahoma, to Texas A&M. Like, they've been right there all year, and we've seen crazy things happen in that matchup before. So Bama still needs to take care of business in this one too, Joe. Any chance that they get upset here?
I don't think they'll get upset, but I do think this is going to be a very close game. I have Bama winning 35-31. I love the Sooners plus 7.5. But I mean, this is a game Oklahoma is clinging on for dear life, trying to fight for their playoff lives. They lose this game, even if they went out, sitting there at 9-3, with how LSU and Missouri have kind of fallen off late. I don't know if their resume, your big win is probably at Tennessee. That's your most impressive win. I know they have a win against Michigan early in the year, but I think the committee has kind of shown that those early season games don't really matter to them as much with like the
Mhm.
Notre Dame Miami discrepancy. Um, like I don't know if that resume at 9-3 will be able to get them in, especially with all these teams lurking around there. Like you have Utah sitting there at 13th right now. I think that's a team, if they went out, they're just waiting in the wings. They might not even make it to the Big 12 title game. And I still think Utah could sneak into the 12-team playoff because of the fact that they're just sitting there at 13 right now. Oklahoma clinging on for dear life. I think this game going on the road is really, really tough. So that's why I'm going to take Bama to win it close. I think Ty Simpson's going to have another, big man drive late. He's been really impressive this year. I did not expect him to be this good. I didn't expect him to necessarily be bad. And I mean, especially after Bama, like losing to Florida State is still so weird to me. Like how
And that
their
wasn't even
seasons have
close.
gone. Yeah, no,
That
that
game was
was
a
a
blow up,
yes.
dismantling.
Florida State rolled them. And now you have Bama looking like one of the best teams. You could tell me, like, if you told me tomorrow, Coyle, that you bet on Bama to win the national title, I'd be like, okay. Like, I don't think that's a crazy take at this point. But I'm going Bama close here. I think Oklahoma's a good team, but I just think going on the road a little bit too much. If you're really playing for your life, I think Oklahoma's gonna be a little bit tight. Maybe, a couple too many mental mistakes late. I think Bama will hold out here and win this game 35-31.
Yeah, the reason why I love Alabama in this game is just because when you look at Kalen DeBoer so far and what he's done at Alabama, when they've played, teams that they've had highlighted on their schedule, a big time matchup, that's when they've shown up and that's when they played their best. You look at, the Georgia game, you look at last year against LSU when they were still in the mix for the playoff. They show up for those games. They've really struggled in the games against the inferior opponents that they think they should walk all over, aka what we just talked about, Florida State week 1. Vanderbilt last year, even South Carolina this year. They needed some late game heroics to win that one. So this is certainly a huge matchup, as I outlined. You can't afford any slip ups with the Iron Bowl coming up. You never know what's going to happen in that matchup. You win here, I would give them a 99.9% chance of making the college football playoff. So this is obviously a huge matchup here for Bama, but it's also a big one for Oklahoma. So that's why I'm going to take Oklahoma to cover the 7.5. I love getting the hook there, but I will take Alabama to win on the money line there. Oklahoma, I think their defense is still going to be good enough to kind of hang in this game and maybe cause some fits for Ty Simpson. But that Alabama offensive line has been great. They've really cleaned up their act since that Florida State game. And Bama being at home, I think, give them a little bit of the home field advantage there as well. So give me the Tide to win 30-23. I'll go Oklahoma plus 7.5 and over 45.5. All right, ACC time now. Chaos last week. We see Virginia go down for their first conference loss. We see Louisville go down. Virginia, Chandler Morris gets knocked out of the game last week. Is he back this week? I think it was like a concussion. So that's always a hit or miss. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't find out if he's playing or not till Saturday morning at 10 o'clock or something. But they'll be playing at Duke, who you just touched on a little bit ago, goes to UConn and loses last week. Kind of a similar situation to Pitt in Notre Dame, where a non-conference game right here in the middle of conference play when you're kind of fighting for a playoff spot. What's your mind really on? Like, even if Duke loses, are they completely out of it still? Or I guess, sorry, I was referring to last week. If they lose this one, they're pretty much eliminated. But still, pretty wild to see them sitting here at 5-4, 4-1. And that offense for Duke has been great this year. Darian Mensah has been great since transferring from Tulane. And it's weird because Manny Diaz is a defensive coach, and that defense has really struggled. Giving up 30 plus last week to sorry, just gave him my UConn. And then a couple weeks ago, this Duke team played Clemson and they let up 30 plus. The over in that game hit by halftime. So they haven't been able to stop anything on that side of the ball. But they are a pretty big favorite here this week. And I'm not sure if that's just a normal line or they don't think Morris is going to play. But 3:30 kick on ESPN2. Duke's a 6.5-point favorite, over under all the way up at 59.5.
I'm going to Duke here 42-31. I think Duke is going to come back. I think the non-conference game matters, but if Duke is really serious about that, just like Pitt saying it doesn't matter, that game against UConn was inconsequential. Because if they go out and they win the ACC, even at 9-4, they'll probably still be in. Yeah, they might be like the 11 or 12 seed, but they'll still be in the playoff. Duke still has everything in front of them. They get a chance to come home. You have a top 25 team. You have the team that's right now tied with you atop the conference. You could make a statement here if you're Duke, being like, "Hey, we're not dead yet." Massive bounce back spot. I think Darren Mensa is a great quarterback. I mean, Coyle, you already mentioned how good he's been. But after this for Duke, you go to UNC, who's 4-5. I know they've been a little bit better of late, but still not good. And then you host Wake Forest to end the season. If you get through this game, there's a very real possibility we're looking at Duke in the ACC championship game. So that being said, I think Duke's win this game. The Chandler Morris stuff with him being questionable really concerns me because even if he does play, will he be 100%? Did he practice all week? All that stuff. So I think Duke wins this game comfortably. So I'll take a -6.5. I'm going to go over 59.5.
I put this or put our lines out on Monday afternoon, and it was 6.5. And I see now, I think it's down to 4 actually. So I would probably lean towards Chandler Moore's plan. There was a tweet from On3 about 45 minutes ago that said he remains in concussion protocol, viewed as questionable for Saturday night. So the closer it gets with those concussions, I think the more worrisome you get. But if the line moves from 6.5 to 4 in a couple days, I think that's also a pretty good indication that the quarterback should be playing. So if Chandler Morris plays, I love the over. It would probably be one of my favorite plays of the week. Morris and Mensa going back and forth on each other. I don't think this Duke Duke defense can stop anything. And I don't really think the UVA defense is all that great either. We've seen them in a couple low scoring games, but we've also seen them in kind of a couple shootouts. So I think we get this one kind of back and forth. Morris and Mensa, who has the ball last, maybe decides it. But Duke being at home, I'm just going to give them the nod there. But if it's all the way up at 6.5, like we had on here, I will take UVA to cover that 6.5. But I'd really like the over 2. I'll go 35-31 Duke. So UVA plus 6.5, over 59.5. All right, last 2 games. We have number 21, Iowa, 6-3, 4-2. And hey, I think they're probably eliminated. They're probably going to need some major chaos down the stretch, and they're going to need to win their last 3 games on the schedule, or 2 games on the schedule, whatever it is. They go to number 17 USC, who's 7-2, 5-1, who is definitely still in contention for a college football playoff spot. Probably not going to go to the playoff, go to the Big Ten title game, barring some chaos. But still, I think alive for one of those kind of last at-large spots. So still a big matchup here. 3:30 kick on Big Ten Network. USC -6.5, over under 49.5, and what goes back to kind of what I just said at the beginning too, Joe, like Iowa, say what you want about them. The, broken record still that the offense hasn't done much, but the defense really keeps them in it. And I think you can look at Oregon and you can look at Indiana and say those that Iowa gave those 2 teams their toughest games of the year so far. Indiana had a battle last week with Penn State, and Oregon did too, but Iowa really stuck in there and made that game tough. I don't know if USC should be a 6.5 point favorite against this tough Iowa squad.
Yeah, I think this game's going to be really interesting here. I'm going to actually take USC to cover the 6.5, 24-10. I think it'll be a low scoring game because, Coyle, you mentioned it. That Iowa defense is very good. It's tough if you're in Iowa to get off the mat after you had a chance to pull off what would have been like a landmark upset for Iowa. I know Iowa's always consistently like a bowl team and they're always pretty decent, but like you could have put yourself with a chance to make a playoff. You lose at the buzzer to Oregon, and then you have to go all the way out to LA, to play USC, who's another good football team. I think USC is going to win the game. Like I said, low scoring. That Iowa defense is very good. This to me is just like gut feeling of like you're going to come out flat. You had an emotional loss at home. Then you got to go all the way on the road and travel across the country.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked ever since they expanded to 18 teams, the Big Ten, about how the cross country travel really like messes with these guys. So I'm going to go with USC here, 24-10.
Yeah, it's a very interesting total. I think it's the most interesting total of the week because it's like
Mhm.
Iowa, I feel like you're just conditioned to bet the under. USC under Lincoln Riley, especially, you're just conditioned to bet the over. So kind of what side do you take on this one? I'm going to go with the over by hitting by the hook here. I think Iowa still, tough enough, good enough to keep this close, keep this a ball game, but I will take USC to win. I think USC still has a little bit more to play for. Iowa's more so in kind of that spoiler range, spoiler zone that they could end USC's season here. But if USC wins out, I don't know off the top of my head who they have next week. But if USC wins out, they're going to at least have a seat at the table. They still have Oregon. They still have Oregon, and they still have UCLA. If they go out 10-2, and their only losses on the season are to who? Notre Dame and Illinois, and that Illinois game was down the stretch. Like that was a really tough matchup. Um, that they're gonna have a very interesting conversation. I don't think they're gonna be in the Big Ten title game, which will hurt, but like they'll be above Michigan because they have them in the head to head. If they beat Iowa here, they'll be above them in the head to head, eliminating them for sure from any contention. So USC certainly still alive. I'm gonna look right now on DraftKings their playoff odds live on air here. USC is plus 340 to make it, minus 450 to miss it. So Vegas doesn't really like him there, but I think that also has baked in that Vegas is probably going to make them a touchdown underdog or so with that game at Oregon. So if you think they have any chance to win that Oregon game, I think that's maybe worth a stab there. But this USC team's still alive. I do think Iowa's tough enough though to keep it within the number. But I'll go USC 27, Iowa 23. So Iowa plus 6.5 over 49.5. All right, in our final game of the week, number 10, Texas, 7-2, 4-1 in the SEC. I think barking the same tune as Oklahoma, where they lose this game, season's probably over. They still have a chance to play Texas A&M in the final week of the season. That helps them out a little bit if they're able to win that game, but I think it's still going to be difficult for a team with 3 losses to make it. Number 5, Georgia, they go to, who's 8-1, 6-1. In the SEC. And Joe, even with 2 games to go after this is Georgia's final regular season SEC matchup. So huge for them to go out and finish strong if they want any chance to make it to the SEC title game. But 7:30 kick on ABC. Georgia's 6.5-point favorite. Over under is 47.5.
I'm going to go with the dogs here, 28-21. I'll take Georgia minus the 6.5, and I am going to go over 47.5. Yeah, cool. I mean, I'm with you. It's going to be really tough for Texas if they lose this game, even if they beat A&M to sneak in there. But I mean, ever since that Bama loss, Georgia has, they won at Auburn, they beat Ole Miss, which is big. Then you beat Mississippi State pretty big last week. I think coming home, especially knowing the fact that you have Georgia Tech in a couple of weeks, which is another ranked team that can, further solidify you in that top 5 spot, even if you don't end up making it to the SEC title game. I think Georgia here at the end of the day is the better team. I think Arch Manning has progressed. I really do. I think this Texas team has progressed since the early, parts of the year. But I just think ultimately going on the road, in between the hedges is going to be a little bit too big for Arch to overcome. So I'm going to go with the Bulldogs 28-21.
My lasting memory from those 2 matchups last year with this Georgia and with this Texas team, and I know there's different players. I know this Georgia defense isn't as high level as it was before, but Georgia just absolutely dominated the offensive line for Texas, and Texas had a really good line last year. It's more so like the Kirby and that defensive staff think that they could scheme up some stuff against Sark, and Sark didn't really have answers to it. And remember, Arch kind of got thrown in there. He didn't really even look well with Quinn Ewers getting a little bit banged up. So I don't know if Texas, especially the offensive line this year, I think is weaker than last year. And so you could say the same thing about the Georgia defensive line. They kind of maybe cancel each other out. But I don't have the faith in this Texas offensive line up front. That has looked better over the past few weeks as Texas offense finally kind of getting cooking a little bit, scoring some points. But, at home at Georgia. Georgia's still playing for something as well. Texas is only 2-6 as an underdog against the spread under Sark, and only 1-7 straight up too. So it just sounds like a losing situation, a disaster kind of scenario. And Georgia, say what you want about them. If you want to take Texas to cover the spread and keep it within the number, sure, you could say that. But to just flat out win the game, Georgia's found a way to win each and every week this year, except that Alabama matchup. Fourth quarter comes around, it's the old cliche, but if they put those fours up and it's their quarter. They found a way to pull rabbits out of their hat all season, and I think that they're able to do that again on Saturday night. So I'm going to take Georgia to win. Pretty much eliminate Texas from the college football playoff, and Georgia wins 31-27. Texas keeps it within the number, 6.5 and over 47.5. All right, last two picks, dog of the day and lock of the week to finish us out. Dog of the day, our favorite underdog of the week. I'm going to go with NC State plus 14.5 at Miami. Good old hate watch for me against those Hurricanes, but this is a 3:30 kick on Saturday afternoon, and I think the biggest thing in this matchup and why I think at least NC State can keep it within 2 touchdowns, their offense can move. They've got some playmakers on that side of the ball. They can put up some points in a hurry, and with Miami and Carson Beck and his ability to turn the football over in the blink of an eye, seemingly, if you afford this NC State offense a few more possessions, they're definitely going to be able to convert some of those, and I think make this an interesting ball game. So I don't know if I'm bullish enough to pick them outright on the money line, but to keep it within 2 touchdowns, I think NC State's definitely capable of that.
I am going to go with the UCF Golden Knights plus 24.5 at Texas Tech. Texas Tech coming off a big win against BYU. I think they're going to come out a little bit flat. I don't think they're going to lose the game in any way, shape, or form. I just think 24.5 is a pretty big number, especially against another Power 5 opponent, in the conference. UCF, still new kids on the block in the conference. Definitely want to come in there, year one under Scott Frost. And I think they're going to keep it within the number. So I'm going to go with UCF plus 24.5.
Lock of the week, I'm going to go with Louisville staying in the ACC, minus 2.5 at home Friday night against Clemson. Louisville still playing for a chance to go to the ACC title game. Clemson, a disaster of a season, one of, if not the most disappointing teams in the country. You can put them right up there with Penn State and with LSU. It's a lost season for them. They did find a way to win last week against Florida State, but I'm not reading too much into that. Louisville coming off a loss, a must-win opportunity here. I just flat out think they're a better team than Clemson, so I like them minus 2.5 on Friday night to get it done as my lock of the week.
My lock of the week, I'm looking to bounce back. I'm 8-4 in the season, lost my last 2, though. I'm going with Georgia Tech minus 16.5. They are at Boston College. Boston College has not won since week 1 when they played Fordham. I think Boston College football has quit. I think the entire athletic department has quit. Their basketball team losing to my Central Connecticut State Blue Devils last night. But I just think Boston College is terrible. I think they're done. I think they're going to go 1-11. I think they might be worse than Oklahoma State. I think they're like the worst Power 5 team or Power 4 team in the country this year. They're really, really bad. So I'm going to go with Georgia Tech going on the road. I thought BC was going to keep it a little close after the Notre Dame loss. And then, I thought they were going to keep it within the number against SMU after SMU came off that big win against Miami. They obviously did not. Georgia Tech, on the other hand, they're coming in here off a bye. That loss to NC State is kind of sitting there. They have that taste in their mouth. I think they're going to come out and demolish Boston College on Saturday.
Yeah, that was a fun video last week with Bill O'Brien going off at that reporter, and then I'm not sure if you saw it after. He goes, "What's up, Trevor?" They're like, "What do you like? What's your question, Trevor?" But I watched that and I was like, "All right, I'm going with BC this weekend." Would they lose by 35 or something like that?
Killed. They got smoked.
Yeah. So you live and you learn sometimes. But all right, that'll do. Week 12 in the books. We got 2 huge SEC matchups that we talked about, handful of other good ones. So I'm sure a lot to talk about next week. We'll be back next Tuesday to break down the playoff rankings. Went to a Nova basketball game this week, so missed out on that. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. As always, please like, please subscribe, and we will talk next week.